Hey, there we go. Oops.
Hey,
Hey, that's the wrong thing.
hey, look at that's
Let's
me.
do that. Hey, there we go.
Yeah,
That's better. I forgot to turn it to the other camera. Hi, it is Tuesday. So we're going to talk about comic books that dropped this week. And we got, it's a smaller stack, I
it's
think.
it's not the biggest stack. There's some good stuff out this
But
week.
there is good
There's
stuff.
some stuff to talk about. There's some stuff that I didn't get a chance to really flip through that's on the shelf
Mm-hmm.
that we maybe will catch
Mm-hmm.
in future weeks. But yeah,
Yeah.
I there's well, so we say that like I say that like I'm not excited. Like, yeah, there's some stuff here. I actually have.
You're excited.
I am excited to talk about possibly the most important comic book for me
Of all time?
personally. Well, maybe not of all time. It's hard to say. I have too many favorites for
Right.
something to be of all time.
Okay.
But we've. Well, I mean, we'll get to it when we get.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
There's.
Let's talk about this book we already
pretty
saw.
excited. So
'cause I
yeah,
had the wrong camera on. Boom.
So starting off, I'll just show off some of the trade paperbacks collected editions that are coming out tomorrow. This is a new
Yeah.
manga, and I sort of feel obligated now since I made that joke that one time about buying every cat manga that comes out.
Yeah.
That I have to show all the new cat mangas, and that's kind of dangerous because there's like a million of them.
Yeah, people love cat manga.
People love cats and they love manga. This is another one of those series that's like one like pretty funny joke, and then it's a setup for a whole series. So I have to admit, I'm kind of curious to see how it goes. It's your basic like RPG fantasy party,
Mm-hmm.
but this one guy that's in the party, he can't join in any of the combat because every time they're about to start a combat, the stray cat comes up and sits on his lap, and
Okay.
obviously you cannot disturb the cat.
No, you can't get up
What kind of
against him.
monster? He's a good guy, so he's not going to disturb the cat.
He's not just going to get up.
And then that's like the plot. Like it's like they're going on an adventure.
That's the whole thing.
That's the whole plot. And
Okay.
like the cat keeps following them, and like every time they're about to like get into it, here he is. He's about to jump right in, and then oh no, there's the cat. So
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie, it makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
That's
what you want.
You know what? Yeah, it's a light and silly read.
We want a
And,
good chuckle
yeah,
every once in a
Get a
while.
good chuckle, and cats are funny. I almost said cats are stupid, which they are, but they're funny because they're stupid.
Wow.
So moving on to another
Moving
book
on.
that I have read
Hey,
that I
look at
really
that.
enjoy, X-Men Grand Design.
Yes.
So fans, you probably heard this book if you're a fan of the X-Men. This has being released as a standard size trade paperback for the first time. Previously, this was 3 different books, and they were all in that oversized Treasury Edition format, is what they call it. And so this is all 3 books put together in a nice standard size TPB. If you didn't want to shell out like $35 a piece for the 3 different books, this is everything for $40. It'll fit on your bookshelf, which is always nice. This is a good book.
Oh, cool.
Dan, if you've ever had any interest in learning the entire history of the X-Men,
Yeah. No, I have.
this
Not.
is essentially that's what I thought.
Yeah.
This is like a condensed history lesson
Okay.
of the entire continuity from the beginning of the story. I'm going to do air quotes here. Right up until like a certain point in the late 80s continuity, like I think the formation of like X Factor #1. But this is by Ed Piskor, who is like kind of an indie comic book artist. And we've talked about his current book, Red Room, actually on the show before, which we couldn't show any of the panels of because it's definitely a mature
gruesome,
reader's.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
gruesome. So Ed is a horror movie kind of guy. Like he really likes his like horror movie and stuff like that. Not totally my thing, which is why I have not really talked about Red Room a whole lot. But I can say the X-Men are my thing, and he loves the X-Men too. And he did this whole book. This was several years ago, so I'm glad to see it finally getting like a proper. I don't want to say proper release because I actually do think the Treasury Edition is a really good way to read it because I like the giant size art and his pages. It's all like, if you want to bring it down again, it's like pretty dense with the grid format because it's done in the style of one of his earlier books, the Hip Hop Family Tree, and so the whole thing is kind of like it's like a Cliff Notes history lesson. Like each panel is like this happened, then this happened, then this happened, but it's his art, kind of his interpretation of the scene from the original comics by all the creators that worked on the X-Men. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, all of that. But yeah, it's fun. I like reading it because I like classic X-Men, And this book is a way to kind of relive all of those old stories without having to read 300
whole
issues.
thing. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a good book. Definitely worth checking out if you're an X-Men fan, or even a lapsed X-Men fan, or just a fan of the old stuff.
Just trying to
And
catch
you
up.
don't want to like again, like you maybe you can't don't have your issues anymore. You don't want to rebuy them. You don't want to read through 300 issues. That's a perfectly acceptable middle ground. Just pick up this book and relive the glory days because we're old guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about old stuff. Also, I talked about this. I think the last time it came out, Eerie Collection. This is volume 2, collects issues 6 through 10. I wanted to just point out, I love these Eerie comics, just like old black and white horror by the Masters.
The Masters.
Really great stuff. But so this Eerie issue 8, this cover, I actually accidentally flipped right to it. It's the cover that they. It's the cover
Is that Alfred
they
E.
use.
Newman?
No, no, that is not. That is not.
Doesn't
Alfred
it
E.
look like
Newman.
just look like?
I mean,
Alfred E. Newman?
a little bit, but no. This is. This jumps out to me because I knew this before I even knew what like Eerie was or Frank Frazetta was. This Frank Frazetta piece was used as the album cover for the hard rock band Nazareth.
Okay.
In like 1977, I think. I would have to check the dates to see what it was used for first. I would assume maybe it was used for Eerie first, but if you ever like hard rock Nazareth, I thought it was so cool. I was like, hey, that's the album cover, and it's also the cover of Eerie. Pretty cool stuff. Just like really good comics. Definitely worth your money.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you. Do you like Nazareth?
Yeah, no, I was just checking.
Making sure it works.
Just seeing how it's all going. Just seeing how it's all going.
It's respectable.
Yeah, it's all respectable.
Next up, I have a few issues that are in my regular poll that I haven't gotten a chance to read yet, but I always want to highlight them.
Oh, yeah.
Just to make sure that everybody is aware that they're out there.
Forge.
You should be reading these. This first one.
I'm like 2 issues behind right
Yeah,
now.
you're
They're sitting in my pile, and I'm like, I'll read those one day.
This book is good. I guess since I haven't read this issue, I should maybe be careful which pages I open to.
I mean,
it's not
terribly
not too bad, but I wouldn't put it past this book to surprise me with something,
Yeah.
No, this is a cool comic. I love the art. There's a little bit of violence there.
You gotta have that.
Yeah. So cool book. I'm always excited to see it when it comes out. Coming up next, another issue that I am excited about, World's Finest Teen Titans. I haven't talked about this every time it's come out, but it's worth noting, this is written by Mark Waid, and I've been really singing the praises of Mark Waid lately between his Superman and Shazam comics. You've heard me talk a lot about those.
I have.
But this is another good one. If you like the classic versions of the characters, this is Waid writing the Teen Titans, but set in and it's not really established like when, but it's an earlier version of the team, and which would be more like the 80s, 90s versions. But because of the way timelines work, and it's the year 2023, in the stories, this has to be from a few years ago, not literally 30 years ago.
Gotcha.
But this is good stuff. It's fun. It's action packed. It's the way. I hate to say it like this. It's the way comics used to be, but I don't mean that in that it's like in a vintage style. Like it's really
just the way the story is told.
Just the way the story is told.
Yeah.
Like it's very substantial. Like each issue feels like it's not just like a part of just like a never-ending ongoing story.
Yeah.
Each issue is like a substantial story, which is something I feel is kind of a lost art in a lot of modern comic books.
It's not just setting you up for the next issue and then setting you up for the next issue.
Right. There's always a little bit of that.
Oh,
like,
sure.
But
you're getting some story.
But you're getting something with each issue. And that's Mark Waid's kind of the master of that, at least currently. Like he's one of the few guys I think that does it really well. Next up, another book that I've been reading and enjoying, Hexagon Bridge. I talked a little bit about the first 2 issues when they came out. It's a really kind of like a dreamy story, so it's not.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this last time.
Yeah, it's not like a very dense story, but the art is really nice and the characters are pretty interesting. Like there's I think the basic
Hexagon Bridge.
Yeah,
It looks like a soccer ball exploding.
It does, especially in that panel. Yeah.
Maybe not lean so heavily on the whole soccer ball aspect. But,
There you go.
Oh yeah.
There's your intergalactic soccer ball.
Intergalactic soccer balls. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really nice. Just like dealing with multiverses and trying to map out unknown spaces.
Well, yeah, as you do.
It happens. It's a very science fiction-y kind of thing. But I also, as I talked about last time, I just really, really, really like just the cover design of it. I like the...
It's like minimalist.
It's minimalist. Yes, exactly.
It feels like a scientific journal.
It does. It's really good. It just really sells you on the just like the tone that the book is going for.
Right.
So it does a really good job of that.
You can judge a book by its cover in this case.
You know what? Everybody, we probably have already made this joke.
Yeah,
I know that's
we?
the saying.
Yeah.
But like the whole purpose of the cover
cover
of a book is to be judged, is to get you
to get you hype about
to
it.
hype about it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, another book that's always in my poll, Superman Lost. I've been talking this one up a lot.
Yeah.
Love this book. This is issue 8. It's a 10-issue series. Really looking forward to when the whole thing gets collected, so I can start putting it in people's hands. But this issue, I haven't read it yet, but it has a special guest star. I guess it's not really a spoiler, but Adam Strange, who is a really cool DC character.
Yeah, Adam Strange.
Yeah. He's like
My favorites.
he's just good, like pulpy sci-fi. Like kind of I don't want to say Flash Gordon per se, but just like a space adventurer. Who,
Like a space Flash Gordon.
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Wait,
Sure.
wasn't Flash Gordon already in space?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
But
Who ripped off who?
well, Flash Gordon came first, I believe. But this is very Adam Strange is very space age. Like he flies around in a.
Is that Adam Strange?
No, that's Black Adam. He's a different Adam.
Oh, that's Adam.
That's Adam Strange.
Oh, that's
and he
strange.
looks very strange.
He looks like the Rocketeer.
Yeah. I mean that's what but like the '60s version of it, where everything is like
What's his
space
superpower?
helmets. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a space adventurer.
He just flies around.
Yeah, he flies
Why
around.
is he hanging out with Superman?
Well, because he's flying around in space. He's got some super technology stuff that helps him out. He's an adventurer and explorer.
I don't know about that.
You don't know about nothing. This is the problem with you, Dan.
I don't know about that.
But I haven't read that issue in particular, so I can't tell you if he exhibits any powers in that issue.
Got you.
So we will see.
Solid.
Another one that, again, I've been following, that I've talked about every time it comes out, Fish Flies.
Yeah.
This is a nice, weird little book. Like, I really like the art. It's very unique, expressive. Like, there's a lot of cartooning going on with the characters. They just look like, I pretty much appreciate anything that specifically doesn't go for a photorealistic look. And Jeff Lemire can definitely handle that really well. Like, his characters look really, like you can read the emotion on the character's face really well. Yeah, it's good stuff. The mystery kind of gets deeper. We talked about it last time. Like this guy turns into a giant bug, and this and hides out in this girl's barn, and she's like a little weirdo, and so they have this weird kind of almost friendship. But somebody's on the trail looking for the bug, so bad things are probably going to happen there.
For the bug, man.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I know everybody's been pretty excited about Fish Flies. Everybody likes Jeff Lemire. Just a reminder, if you didn't know it was coming out, it will be out tomorrow. You should check it out. Another one, I got one more book that I just want to highlight. I haven't read it yet, but it looks interesting.
Oh.
So this is called The Deviant, A Christmas Story by James Tynion IV and Joshua Hickson. And it looks like kind of like a creepy little Halloween horror story.
Right.
So I'm always in the mood for that. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to read it.
A Christmas horror story?
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I really liked the art just flipping through it. It looks really good. Looked kind of creepy. There's some creepy imagery going on. Yeah, there you go. Ugh. So, yeah, this looks pretty good. Definitely something that, creepy Santa Claus.
We had Killer Santa Claus. Yeah.
So, if you like the macabre, creepy horror stuff mixed with Christmas, because, Christmas can't be all like joy and whatever. It's also just the most depressing time of year sometimes. So the horror stuff works really well.
It's really easy.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks good. I'm looking forward to reading that one. All right,
All right.
here we go.
Here's what you're most excited
Here's what I'm actually
Here's the
excited
next
about.
30 minutes of the
This,
show.
we just blew through like 10 books.
Yeah, just so we can talk about this
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Boom.
Boom. G.I. Joe, a real
Yeah.
American hero.
Now,
Now,
I'm going to start you off here.
go for it.
Is this a facsimile?
It is not
What?
a
But it looks like a
facsimile.
facsimile.
This is why I didn't lead with it at the top of the show, because it's not a facsimile. But you're right, it
What?
looks like a facsimile.
Insanity.
This is a reprint of issue 1 of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero,
It is.
by Larry Hama and I forgot who drew it. Herb Trimp, of course. Of course, Herb Trimp, his stalwart at the Marvel Bulletin.
Shrimp.
But the reason this isn't a facsimile is because it restores Larry Hama's original script. So I actually, I have to hand in my true G.I. Joe fan card because I really don't know a whole lot about that. Like, I don't know if I have to assume it was just a lot of editing done between Marvel and Hasbro when they were like, okay, they want to make sure the comic is correct.
They're
and
not
right.
like murdering people.
Yeah. And that was always, I know that was a little bit of, not contention, but Larry Hama's been very open about how it's immoral to do a war story and not show the how terrible it is. Right, exactly.
That's the whole
and
idea.
So to have people shooting guns at each other and never see people die or get shot or blood. He was really against that. And Larry Hama himself was a Vietnam vet. He was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's
more context there.
Yes. Yeah. So it's something that he felt strongly about, which is why I think he was probably pretty dismissive of the cartoon, because the cartoon is the epitome of good guys and bad guys stand on opposite ends of the room and shoot colorful lasers at each other and never hit anything.
Yeah, and no one gets hurt.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I haven't read this issue yet. I want to read it kind of side by side with the original G.I. Joe #1
to see what's been
to
changed.
see what's been changed and how what's been restored.
Yeah.
Because I also wonder.
Half the Joes die immediately.
Well, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any change in the art per se.
Yeah.
But it also might be just things like tone. Maybe they're like, okay, maybe soften up some of that language there. This is a comic book for 5-year-olds, remember? But Larry always took it very seriously, as I understand it. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason that here we are to 40 years later. 82, I think, is when G.I. Joe #1 came out.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that it's still even a thing.
The G.I. Joe is still popular. People still know G.I. Joe.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of talked about that in some of the past episodes when we showed off some of those facsimiles for other toy comics, like Rom Space Knight. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And Micronauts was another one. And those are ones where I look at those and I'm like, I've never even heard of these toys, And so, you're excused. And so, oh my God, Dan's dying on stream. This is going to be our most highly rated episode ever.
Oh, you see that stream where dude died? It's so good.
So, it probably was. It would be pretty good. I'm just saying, for the numbers.
That's all right.
But,
no one would notice.
At the time, doing this issue, doing G.I. Joe was tantamount to doing a Rom Space Knight comic. It was nothing that was spectacular. He would much rather have been working on Spider-Man or the Hulk.
Right,
G.I. Joe is the pity job that you get. It's we have the license, we have to do.
At least I'm working.
At least I'm working, exactly. And it's kind of incredible that it has turned into the almost, you could almost say, the media empire that it is. Certainly the franchise. It's no Transformers, I have to admit. Like those Transformers movies by Michael Bay, as much as I really, really dislike them, they've done a lot to maintain the popularity.
They just give me a headache,
Exactly.
man. I can't watch those things.
And I just want to say, I wasn't an old man when I first saw that That's not new. Those first Michael Bay Transformers movies, it was 15 years ago. I want to say 2007.
Don't remind me.
So the point is, that was a long, and even then I was getting a headache from it.
Yeah.
As a virile young man,
As a young man with your whole life ahead of you.
Yes.
They still weren't great.
But anyway, so the biggest reason that this, I guess you could call it, I think the term that's being used now is a faux simile, where it's a reprint of the original issue, but it's not actual. There's a little touch changes to it.
Yeah.
There's going to be another comic that comes out sometime in the future that's a faux simile that we will undoubtedly be talking about, but we'll save that for when it shows up. But I'm going to say this is the first faux simile that I've ever seen, where it's almost a facsimile, but it's not the actual first issue.
Mm-hmm.
There are some changes to it. The biggest reason that this is coming out is because the other thing coming out today, boom, is G.I. Joe number 301.
Oh.
And I have, like, so many things to say. I'm overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed
like,
by all the G.I. Joe content.
well, just talking about like all that stuff I just said about it being like 40 years of success for G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
It is kind of incredible to see the first issue and the 301st issue like side by side.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That here we are 40 years later and it is gone. And that's considering that it took like probably many years break, if not over a decade, because the original G.I. Joe series that started in '82 was canceled at Marvel in the '90s.
Okay.
And then the franchise was rebooted and redone a few places, and then eventually it ended up at Dynamite or IDW. It ended up at both of them. I just don't remember which one first. And they were like, enough with the reboots. Let's just get Larry Hama back to continue the original series.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's what this is. This is actually a continuation of the original series with the original writer, Larry Hama. And it's been just like one giant ongoing story. And it's pretty cool to see it. So I was a little curious to jump into this. Like, first of all, I really appreciate that this is some clever work on the cover, like with the big number one, but it's the 301st issue.
Nice.
Because like Transformers, they didn't bother trying to do a continuation of the numbering for like that, because there's been so many different Transformers series. They're just like, number one, it's a new Transformers series.
Yeah.
But with G.I. Joe, there is like a little bit of legacy to it, to like Larry Hama was the only writer for this 300 issue story. Like, that's pretty cool. I, as much as I say I really like G.I. Joe, I dipped in and out of the fandom, like the comics fandom.
Yeah, you're not a real fan.
Correct. We'll talk about who's a real fan in a second, Dan.
Yeah, a fair weather G.I. Joe fan.
I just I can't.
When the movie came out, you're like, Channing Tatum.
No, I don't want to talk about those movies at all. We're not even going to reference them. I need you to delete this segment from the re-upload.
I mean,
of this.
what great movies. I mean, it's really well done.
No, as much as I complained about those Transformers movies,
how many G.I. Joe movies were there?
2.
There was 2. Yeah, they made like a second one.
They made a second one.
Whatever.
I've heard it's better than the
reason.
first one.
Yeah, like.
But that's a low bar. Like the first, they didn't even have any of their costumes. Like
No, that's the thing. Like, nobody looked like.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the Transformers may have been like annoying, but at least like Optimus Prime was a truck that was red and blue.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't look exactly like a cartoon, but at least he was the same colors.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. Okay,
Great.
let's not talk about this movie.
Great films.
All I'm going to say is I want to talk about this issue in particular.
Where is he jumping off of? Like
are you talking about?
he's just like floating in the middle.
He's leaping off the tank.
Was he leaping off the tank?
I assume.
How?
It's a little weird
How
because
does
he's
he-
like perspective-wise, he's like so far ahead of this
Was
tank.
he riding on the barrel of the tank and he like?
That could be. He was hanging off, and he's like, "Oh, he's gonna fire this thing. I better let go." That makes more sense. You know what, Dan?
Susie.
It's a dynamic cover.
Susie says we're forgetting Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, who was it that played Dr. Mindbender in the movies? It's that one guy. Somebody tell me.
I
Somebody in the
don't.
chat
I
tell me.
don't know.
It's that one guy who's like in like. All right, hold on. You talk. I'm gonna
Oh,
look at one.
me talk. You look it up. Okay. We'll get back to that in a second. So
I got it. Okay.
I don't know who played Dr. Mindbender. Do you mean Dr. Mindbender or Cobra Commander?
Wasn't he the same guy?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see the movies. This is a terrible review of the G.I. Joe movies episode that we're doing.
I'm
here.
just throwing you off completely.
You really are.
G.I. Joe film series.
So, since I didn't follow the most recent G.I. Joe issues, I was actually really curious how they would handle it being the 301st issue. It's at a new publisher at Image Comics.
Oh, it was
Skybound.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, I thought he was Cobra Commander.
He is Cobra Commander. I thought he was the doctor guy.
No, he's
How is he Cobra Commander?
Don't ask me. I am not. I don't have anything to say about those movies. I told you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I. Okay. All right, Dan.
the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You.
The guy from Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock
the
from
little
the Sun,
kid.
yeah, the little kid.
twerpy kid from Third Rock
Yeah,
from the Sun.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
So, all of this is to say, I enjoyed this issue like quite a bit. You do get a sense of jumping into the middle of a story, but there's a lot going on, and there's good there's good narration that kind of explains everything
So you
along
don't
the
have
way.
to know everything that happened.
Which in many ways it made me feel like when I would read these comics as a kid,
Mhm.
and I couldn't read every issue every month, so you just pick up an issue randomly whenever you could,
Mhm.
and you could kind of follow the story because there was always something kind of like putting everything into the context, or at least the necessary information that you need. The art in this is fantastic. I don't think this comic is going to win over anybody that's not interested in super army soldiers.
Mhm.
But if you just like action adventure comics, and especially if you like G.I. Joe, I think this is really going to please G.I. Joe fans, which is something that somewhat depressingly has not always been the case. Like I said, G.I. Joe's been all over the place for
Yeah.
a while now.
Yeah.
So this feels, in many ways, it feels kind of like a return to form. And I don't know how much it has been prior to this, because like I said, I haven't read the previous bit of Larry Hammett's run.
Mhm.
But I'm super excited to like jump into it right now and then like see where it goes. And so I don't have much else to say about this comic, but we're going to detour here a little bit. We're going to do something we don't normally do.
What's the detour?
The detour is you challenged my like G.I. Joe credibility
Right.
of being a true fan.
Yeah.
So I actually had the foresight to bring in
Right.
a few,
Punished you for it.
a few of my favorite G.I. Joe figures. So like we have like there's Sergeant Slaughter
Yeah,
there
yeah,
that
yeah.
I've had my probably my all-time favorite Beachhead.
Beachhead, yeah. That's what you
you know,
dressed up for
that's
at Halloween.
Just a few episodes ago on this
Mhm.
very podcast, you saw
Mhm.
me dress up as Beachhead. I have Storm Shadow here, the
Oh.
best ninja, which you
Mhm.
can see is right on the cover there. Storm Shadow.
I thought Storm Shadow was a bad guy.
Well, he was,
Mhm.
but it turned out he was brainwashed by
Oh.
Dr. Mindbender, and it was a whole complex plot because he's like Snake Eyes' brother in the clan, the
Mhm.
ninja clan that they're
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
and that's why Snake Eyes had to like rescue him from Cobra. And now he's a Joe, but originally the original one, he's got the little Cobra
Yeah,
symbol
yeah.
on there. He was a bad guy, but then he became a good
He's
guy,
a bad dude.
which just made him even cooler because he's he's like an anti-hero.
He's like
type.
redeemed.
Yeah, and I brought in one. My other favorite character was this guy. His name is Bazooka, and I loved him because he had a red shirt, and in the cartoon he was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to bring these in this morning and show you, Dan, because I know you like G.I. Joe. And Dan, this was the first one you grabbed.
I picked him up.
and you said, "Oh, neat," and then just ripped him right in half.
I twisted his
He
torso.
just went,
and he's just
just split him, just like that.
look, these things are old, and I just did a little turn and I was like, no. What the hell?
So
I
thank you
apologize.
for destroying my vintage
I would like to
childhood
publicly
toy.
apologize on the stream for breaking your bazooka figure. That was not my intention.
I was kind of excited to bring these toys in for the stream just because it would be something silly that we could do. I didn't know it would enrage you so much that you would just
Hey,
destroy
thanks for the
it.
follow.
Yeah, thank you.
And dab, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm not going to promise to show off any more toys that Dan is going to destroy because he's not allowed to touch any.
I could
anymore.
break them.
Yeah, I believe you could. You've got the. You got the history of it right now. Like it's in your profile.
That
like
was
breaks toys.
Totally an accident.
I have to be very careful about the things we let you handle in the store now.
Like I just was like gonna give him a little he's gonna do a little thing, and then he just snapped.
No, you are right. They're very old and brittle, and anybody that's actually a G.I. Joe collector knows that the G.I. I mean, we're gonna get really nerdy.
We're gonna get
So-
into it. Let's go.
One of the things I liked about G.I. Joe was the way they got the articulation was just by having three pieces. You would have the legs, like you can kind of pull it apart there. And there's a little hook.
Mhm.
And get it closer to the camera there.
Mhm.
So you can see there's that hook.
Mhm.
And then you have like the
His crotch.
crotch area, which this was a piece that oftentimes broke off. And then you had the torso, and there's a little rubber band in there that you can kind of see sticking out. And it just loops through to the hook on the legs,
yeah.
and it just holds the groin area in place. And that's how you're able to get like all this cool articulation for the toy. And it was
Yeah.
pretty neat. But it's just like a rubber band, and they deteriorate over time. These things are 40 years old. So yeah, I actually have several of them. Like serious collectors will actually just take them apart and replace them because they fall apart.
Yeah.
Usually they don't wait for their jerky friend to break them before doing it. They just like have the foresight to do it ahead of time before they get broken by being handled by idiots. But
I hardly even turned him at all.
So that's our fun little G.I. Joe story.
I have a serious question though.
Yes. Okay.
Destro's head.
Destro's head.
What's going on with that?
It's a mask.
It's a mask?
It's a mask.
But the mouth moves.
Well, it moves in the cartoon. In the comic, it's just a faceplate. It's a static image.
Oh.
But in a cartoon,
it moves.
You have to animate because kids aren't going to understand that he's talking if the mouth isn't moving.
Yeah.
I assume that's the case, but initially it was just like a man in the Iron Mask kind of a thing, like a look.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. That's always bothered me.
Right. Well,
Like
as a kid, it bothered me too.
Metal skin.
Right. No, because
what's his deal?
that was the thing that would bother me so much as a kid.
Deal, man?
When like animation things like that, where I'm like it's a mask. How is his mouth moving?
How is his?
Or it's the same thing with like Spider-Man's eyes. Like it's
how
like
is his eyes
how are his eyes? It's a mask. Like, but they would want to make him to look expressive, so they have to have him get small or big. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. It's a mask.
It doesn't make sense.
But you gotta make these concessions for the kids.
I have a lot of GI Joe questions, obviously. All right, let's
we'll save it for a GI Joe exclusive.
We'll do a whole GI Joe stream, and I'll sit here and just snap GI Joes in half.
So here's another issue that is preying maybe on a different type of nostalgia. I don't know. Some people might have heard about this. This is the new Outsiders series, and it stars Batwoman, who's a character that I like. But I didn't realize this until I flipped through the comic. But this is actually reviving one of my absolute favorite comic book series of all time, Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday.
Okay.
So I've talked a few times about how DC Comics, the biggest problem they have is that they absorb all these other publishing houses and characters, and now they're just all a part of the DC universe, and you really have they don't fit, or there's you can't figure out how they work together. So Planetary was a book that was published by Wildstorm, and that was Jim Lee's publishing house of Image Comics. So the G.I. Joe comic we just talked about is by Skybound, which is Robert Kirkman's sub-imprint in Image. Jim Lee had Wildstorm, and when he got his job at DC Comics, he sold them. That was part of the deal. They were like, let us buy Wildstorm, and then you can be the president of comics. And so it was a good deal for him, and he took it. But since then, they've been struggling to make any of the Wildstorm books work. I think I talked about the Wildcats issue, at least the issue number 1 that came out months ago. It's so forgettable you don't even remember that we talked about it.
No.
So I'm trying to think of The Authority. You've probably heard the announcement. James Gunn taking over the DC universe in one of the movies that he wants to do is called The Authority. That's a Wildstorm comic.
Okay.
And now these books that DC are doing, part of their Dawn of DC banner that we've been seeing, is they're trying to incorporate the Wildstorm books into the DC universe. And I am conflicted on that. So I don't want to spoil too much about what happens in this issue.
Yeah, don't do
But basically, Planetary was a comic book series. It was one of my favorite series. It was about these 3 characters. They were the Planetary Incorporation. And the main character was a guy named Elijah Snow. And he would go around and document strange occurrences. And so it would be a history of what it was a history of pulp and superhero fiction, but told in the stories of these new comics. So for example, they would go investigate a weird thing that was happening, and it would all be anagram or a parody or a satire of a famous pulp hero, like the Lone Ranger or Flash. I don't know about Flash Gordon per se, but it's things like that. And so there was a lot of characters that would be recognizable,
but not IP infringing.
Exactly what it was. And the main villains of that series were the Fantastic Four, believe it or not. That's a spoiler for 20 25-year-old comic book.
Well, I didn't know.
But yeah, well now you know. But the series ended with like a definitive ending. It was like 26 issues, and it had like a definitive ending. And so this Outsider series is picking up.
Kind of back.
Well,
the character is back.
No, the characters aren't back. It's new characters in the role of the characters from the original Planetary.
Right. The guys
so this
collecting the just cataloging.
Yes. And so this is Luke Fox, this character here, who's in the I Am Batman series. He's the new Black Batman, who's the son of Lucius Fox, who's the character that designs a lot of Bruce Wayne's like gadgetry that he uses as Batman.
Okay.
And so, I mean, he's a cool character, but it's just interesting how this is like, it's like a weird mashup of like Batman characters that don't have anything to do in the current Batman continuity and Planetary. And like the original team was three characters, like it was a team of three, and that was like a thing of like we always have three people on the team.
It's like jamming random characters together and going,
right.
Let's see if this works.
And so it's like he's the new Elijah Snow, or in this Elijah Snow role, he's even wearing the white suit that Elijah Snow famously would wear, and he like goes to recruit Batwoman, and they have a new character called the Drummer, or just Drummer. They make a whole joke out of that, which that was a character. The code name of the character was Drummer. And they investigate some stuff, like a weird thing that pops up, and it's like a giant spaceship, and it's related to stuff that was happening in the Authority comic book with, it's like a multiverse traveling thing.
It's a lot of stuff tied in together.
Yeah, there's this whole thing about Century Babies. What I'm getting at is...
what are you getting at?
I don't know if, like, a DC Comics reader, like, if you're just like, oh, Batwoman, I want to read a new comic about Batwoman.
It's not really...
I don't know if you're really going to get what all of this is, because it's basically just, like, Planetary and Authority stuff, but with a Batwoman character just kind of thrown into it. So I have to admit, I'm kind of curious to see how it will play out.
It's, like, not important that she's Batwoman.
Not really. I can't tell.
It could be any character.
It could be any character. It just feels like this is the first issue of Planetary where they go and recruit the new character that joins, where Elijah Snow has to recruit the new character that joins the Planetary, and it just feels like that, but with Batwoman. And so I'm, it looks good. I will say that. Like, the art did give me a little bit of that classic Wildstorm feel. Like, there's like big, giant panels, like full pages of, just like big stuff happening. But yeah,
there you go.
I guess I'm just, I don't.
We're not sure what to
make of this. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. Other than I'm probably leaning more toward like can't we just leave it be? Like, Planetary is perfect. Why do we have to have more of it? But I'm kind of curious to see, like, I'm less interested in reading more of it, and I'm more interested in just hearing what people think about it. So this is going to be a book. Yeah. Every single person that comes into the store that buys this, I'm going to, like, tell them, like, follow up with me.
Let me know.
I need to know what you thought. Like, because I'm sure the majority of them will not have read Planetary and the Authority.
Sure.
But, we'll see. I've been surprised before. All right.
Have we? 7 slots.
Have I, Dan, have we talked about my relationship with Deadpool?
I don't know if we've talked about it in depth.
So,
now I want to know.
What's
up?
I am the world's biggest Deadpool fan and hater at the same time.
Okay. That's a way to start the conversation.
I have a lot of Deadpool comics. When Deadpool was in the New Mutants and X-Force in the 90s, he was like the coolest character because he was, as a kid, you're just like, wow, he's like a guy that has guns and swords. He basically was like the Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
I can see that, yeah.
Like, he's just like a total, like, VA, and he's like kind of sarcastic. He wasn't really like funny the way we think of the character now. He was just like, everything was just like cool. Like, he was just so cool. And they didn't care about anything, and he would like crack jokes, but they were always like really dark jokes. The way like every character did back in those comics.
Yeah, the 90s was a time for that.
Yeah. And then the character was reinvented in the late 90s by writer Joe Kelly and artist Michael Wieringo, and that's where they really fleshed him out into a real character. That's where you get a lot of the foundation of who the character is. Like, the breaking the fourth wall jokes, like that comes there.
Oh, okay.
Just like making him a little bit more like irreverent to like he's like insane. Like, you don't know. Like, can he even tell like what he's doing sometimes?
Right. Yeah.
But it was still like a really good series. And then it turned into Cable and Deadpool team up, something like that. Cable versus Deadpool, Cable and Deadpool, which I collected all of that series up into the 2000s. Like I have a long box full of Deadpool comics. I'm not lying.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I felt like I was the only one who liked Deadpool. And then all of a sudden, Marvel realized, hey, people like Deadpool, and they started putting out like 3 books a month, all starring Deadpool.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to dip out because I was like, too much Deadpool.
Oversaturated
I
the
like-
Deadpool market.
Exactly. Look, the character is his shtick is that he's annoying, you know, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I don't need more of that. Like that's a very fine line to walk. Like when your character's like thing is that like he's annoying.
Yeah.
Too much of a good thing, I think, is the danger there. So the biggest reason I haven't really read a lot of the more recent Deadpool stuff. I'm not that interested. But this is a single issue special. It's a $10, probably 80 some odd pages.
It's a big.
It's a
book.
big book. It has 7 short stories in it by different creators.
That's cool.
And they run the gamut from Cullen Bunn, who he was the one who kind of took over the series right when I was dipping out because there was too many comic book series. Which, by the way, Cullen Bunn's St. Louis native, by the way. Shout out to St. Louis.
Yes, to you.
Rod Liefeld does a story. He's the creator, one of the creators of Deadpool. And most notably, one of my favorite Deadpool writers, Gail Simone, does a short story. And also a story by Mark Guggenheim, who's an older writer, and Will Portasio, who's one of the guys that formed Image Comics back in '92. So this is a good mix. I didn't mention any of the names of the newer guys because they're new and I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah.
But it's about half and half of like some like newer work and older work. So I wanted to flip through it. The first story by Cullen Bunn is actually it's the one before this, which it was pretty good. Like the art is solid. It's just a lot of jokes about Deadpool ruminating on the existence of multiple universes, and you just see multiverses, you know, and you see like different versions of Deadpool as he might imagine it, and it's kind of silly and irreverent, but the whole thing is kind of making fun of the extreme popularity of multiverses right now.
Yeah.
So like it worked for me. The next story is fine. Unfortunately, it was drawn by Greg Land, who
Unfortunately.
I don't want to be a Greg Land hater because I don't like being a hater, but his art just doesn't excite me.
You don't like being a hater?
I don't like being a hater, believe it or not.
Could have fooled me.
You know, yeah. So
I think it's fine.
it's, you know what? That's what I say when I don't want to be a hater, and it sounds smug and condescending. And that's because it's kind of meant to be. It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
It's fine.
Next, the one story, one of the highlights of this is by Rob Liefeld. Now, Rob Liefeld himself is one of the like most controversial, touchy things in all of. All I do is hating. Oh, thanks, Susie. I save most of my hating for you, though. That's how you know I care. So Rob Liefeld is a guy that you can't like talk about on the internet without getting a million hard opinions about either he's like the greatest guy in the world or the worst guy in the world. I have complicated, conflicting feelings on him.
And he's the writer or artist?
He's the artist.
Okay.
He's the one who designed Deadpool.
Oh, okay.
He did it at New Mutants 98 was when he first appeared. He was the artist on that book. Artist, co-writer, I guess you could say, the way Marvel worked. But this is his Rob Liefeld's thing, basically, since nothing else has worked out for him in the last decade, 2 decades, is that he's gone back to Marvel and just been the Deadpool guy. Even though he wasn't really a part of Deadpool when Deadpool became really popular. Now that Deadpool's popular, he's back and he's like doing it. And I think it's, you know, I like the way Rob draws Deadpool, even though his art is kind of all over the place sometimes. But I wanted to note, so I'm reading this story, and so in the story, Deadpool has to go assassinate an ex-Yakuza guy who's hiding out in like a cafe. And I'm looking at this character here, and I'm like, wow, that guy looks kind of familiar. Dan, does that look like anything you might have seen in a comic book before? Let me just jog.
At this moment, no.
At this moment, no. Okay, well, that's lucky
also,
for
I'm
you.
very slow.
Lucky. Also, you're kind of stupid.
I used to drink a lot.
Okay. Anyway, no comment. Boom. So there's this very popular manga called Sakamoto Days, and the manga is about an ex-Yakuza hitman who's like hiding out, like he takes a job at a cafe and he's just trying to live a normal life.
Yeah.
And so this is very much just like a fun little Easter egg that Rob did, where he's just like, oh, you know, we're just gonna, because like this issue, or this story, I should say, is all about. I think it's called like Lady Anime. So there's a huge anime theme throughout the whole thing. And so it was a fun little throwaway for him to be like, oh, I got to go assassinate this guy. And you can just imagine that it's Sakamoto
Looks
from
exactly
Sakamoto
like that guy.
days. The only thing that bothers me is that Rob gets accused a lot of, what's the word, homaging other artists.
Plagiarizing?
Well, you know.
Oh, we don't want to say that?
Swiping is the
I got
professional
you.
term. You swipe a pose. And it really bothers me that the cover of Sakamoto Days has this perfect image of Sakamoto pointing a gun, and he doesn't swipe that image. He just
Right.
kind of like has like a random image of him, and then
Yeah.
he's awkwardly holding a gun, like it looks like he's shooting at his shoulder or something.
He could have gotten way more
I just-
on
Why
brand.
I would have, like, of all the things to be coy about, like, be very obvious, I would say, like, go for it, you know. But you know, that's
Fantastic.
part of what makes Rob, and he, you know what, I wouldn't have it any other way. So this is like his art, a lot of classic poses, a lot of classic Rob Liefeld stuff. And then he's fighting this lady, and then she has the power to like become an anime character,
Oh.
and which I actually think is kind of funny. It's kind of cute. Like his actually his I think his artwork's almost better like this. I wish he would draw more in this style. Well, like because it's like more like it's more cartoony, and so it doesn't have a lot of the trappings of when Rob's like the heavy cross hatching and like all of his figures start to like look the same. Like this, I don't know. I enjoy this. It looks more fun to me than like what he's mostly done recently. So I have to admit I you know kind of enjoyed this story. You know, even though I'm not really Deadpool. You get a little anime Deadpool there.
I like that.
I've not really liked a lot of stuff Rob has done recently, but that was nice. I'm gonna skip past the next stories because I don't have anything to say about them. They're by the newer writers. I'm sure they're fine. I just wanted to make mention the Gail Simone story. This was really why I picked up this book, and I'm happy to say I really liked it because Gail, I think, actually is the one who has the best voice for Deadpool. She doesn't make him too annoying. Like he's jokey and funny, but it never feels over the top. I feel like a lot of writers when they go to Deadpool. The problem with Deadpool as a character is that he encourages people to give in to all their worst impulses. Like, oh, it doesn't have to be clever. He can be stupid because he's Deadpool. He's stupid. And then it just gets really annoying. Like I was saying, like your character is annoying, and then people are like, well, it's okay if it's annoying because the character is supposed to be annoying. And no, I disagree with that. Like you can make, even if the character is supposed to be funny and annoying, it can still be too annoying.
Yeah.
So
It's too much. Too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing, as we said. Anyway, I'm happy to say I enjoyed the Gail Simone story quite a bit. That was really good. And then also the Whilce Portacio story with Mark Guggenheim was also pretty good. The only really complaint I have, and this is probably not really a thing to complain about everybody else, this is where I get called a hater. Whilce's art, he's very clearly modeling Deadpool after Ryan Reynolds. I'm just going to zoom in there. Just so you can get a good look at that beefy Ryan Reynolds face as Deadpool. And as much as it goes into my love-hate relationship with Deadpool, I do not like Ryan Reynolds. So I'm not the biggest fan of those movies. But I know, I'm just like making enemies left and right here. This story was good, despite the fact that he looked like... All right, so welcome. Well, this is my stream now, so I'm just going to talk about G.I. Joe.
That's a G.I. Joe stream.
This is G.I. Joe stream.
It's all
All
G.I.
right.
Joe all the time.
We got one more book to talk about. Every week I try to ask a coworker to pick out a book, and we are very fortunate. We have a brand new coworker who, not to confuse it, his name is Aaron. No relation, but he was very confused when I said go pick a comic out. And
He was. I was there.
He goes, what? Maybe not exactly like that, but he was very confused. So he picked out. He actually had a good pick for me. This is Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt. This is so.
Is that a show?
So, well, it is a show now. Originally, it was a fantasy book series. And this Dynamite is publishing the comic book adaptation of the book series.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever read Wheel of Time. I feel like I have, though.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of books in my day. I might have read the first book at one point and then promptly forgot about it. But so
very memorable.
No, you know, it's
made an impression.
No. The problem is I've forgotten pretty much everything from when I was a kid, except for like G.I. Joe and Calvin and Hobbes. That's pretty much
Okay.
it, you know.
Fair.
But so I thought this would be interesting to jump into this. This is issue 1 of the second book in the series, but it is the second book of the series. So I was kind of curious, like, would I be able to just like jump into it
Yeah,
and
and it
understand
would make sense.
And it does, because that's one of the things I like about novels, like book series, is that a lot of times they're still written. Echoing kind of what I was saying earlier about issues. Each issue used to have like a complete story in it, and that's how novels operate. Like a novel is a complete story,
Yeah.
even if it's a part of a whole. And so yeah, I thought this was pretty good actually. I think the art is solid. Not the most like unique thing I've ever seen, but there's good draftsmanship to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good. He handles the characters really well. It's a solid introduction to this high sword and sorcery fantasy. Basic villain is like this all powerful like evil, ancient evil.
Yeah,
That's
as usual.
yeah. It's pretty much as you do. But the main character, he's like a guy that's working for the cult of the evil guy.
Oh,
He's
sweet,
like,
cults.
he's like trying to hide that he's like not sure what's going on. He might turn on them, but yeah, I actually kind of enjoyed this a lot. Like I might actually have to read the novel
So you're
series.
gonna have to like catch up now.
I know. Like it actually, so it put it back on my radar because like it's one of those things that I was like, I remember that being a thing, and without getting too much into it, I've heard people say mostly negative things about the Amazon series, so that didn't do much to build my interest in revisiting it. But I enjoyed this comic. Solid. I don't know if people that read The Wheel of Time would be interested in this, just because I don't know anybody that's read The Wheel of Time.
Wow.
No, I'm just teasing. I don't know if I'm sure there's some crossover between comic books and sci-fi readers.
I mean, is it a direct adaptation of the books in comic book form,
So that's
or is this a further story that builds on the universe?
I think it's an adaptation of the book, but it's kind of fleshing it out a little bit, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
from what I've read, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was solid. So if you like high
Sure.
fantasy, definitely worth checking out.
It's a thing you can read.
And we gotta say, good job, Aaron, for picking out
Good
a cool
job,
book
new
for
Aaron.
me to read. Yeah, new Aaron.
Other Aaron.
We haven't kind of
A2.
figured out the naming.
I don't know.
Situation.
We'll figure it out. It's just hard to have two Aarons working at the exact
Yeah.
same time, and it already happened where I was like, "Hey, Aaron," and then both of you guys went, "Yeah." And I was
Yeah.
like,
So if you have any suggestions, please post them
Yeah.
in the chat of what our new
Yeah,
names
exactly.
should be.
What should we call
What
these
should we
guys
call-
to differentiate them?
Yeah, we've got two guys named Aaron. They
Yeah,
spell their
it's
names
just-
the same.
It's too much.
They're both bearded white guys.
It's too
Like,
much
There's
to-
no.
It's too much.
Yeah. So
Someone's gotta
hit us
change
up with
it.
your suggestions. Maybe we'll run a poll or something.
Right.
All
Awesome.
right.
That's all the books we have.
That's it. We
for
made it.
this week. There's some good stuff on there. So go out and buy some comic books. Buy them from Fantasy Books and Games. If you don't get some somewhere, there's something out there for everybody. Enjoy. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye bye.